All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to tackle something huge, the biggest myths the West has about China's economy. And we're going to rebuild our whole understanding, really, from the ground up, using the incredible work of economist Ku Jin as our guide.
So, let's just jump right in, right? What is the single biggest misconception that we in the West have about China's economy? Now, your first thought might be something about, communism or total state control, but the real answer, it's way more subtle and honestly, a lot more fascinating. And there it is. That's the quote that flips everything on its head. This idea that China's economy is run by a small group of people or even just one person. Ku Jin says that's just not reality. It's the core myth we're going to dismantle today because once you get this wrong, everything else you think you know about China's economy is probably wrong too. So, let's dig in.
Okay, so get this. The reality is the complete opposite of that myth. China's economy isn't just a little decentralized. It's actually more decentralized than the economy in the United States. Yeah, I know. That sounds crazy, right? It's a huge claim. So the big question is, how is that even possible in a country known for its strong central government?
Well, the answer to that question, the secret sauce, if you will, is this concept called the mayor economy. This is the real engine that's been driving China's insane growth for decades. And it's a model you won't find anywhere else on the planet. So, what exactly is this mayor economy? Think of it like this. The central government in Beijing basically sets the finish line. They'll say, okay, this year's goal is X% GDP growth. But, and this is the key part, they don't hand out a detailed instruction manual on how to get there. Instead, they turn it into a massive, nationwide competition for thousands of local mayors, telling them, all right, you figure it out. Go experiment.
And this is how it works in practice. Step 1. Beijing sets the big goal. Maybe it's GDP, maybe today it's tech innovation. Step 2, more than 3,000 mayors and local governors basically go to war with each other, economically speaking. They're all trying different things, different reforms, different incentives to crush that metric and, just as importantly, to beat the city next door. Then, the central government just sits back and watches. They're like venture capitalists, looking for the winning ideas. When they spot a local experiment that's working brilliantly, they grab that policy and boom, roll it out nationally. It's this incredible system of bottom-up experimentation that gets scaled up at a lightning pace.
So you might be asking, why do these mayors try so hard? Well, it's not just about civic pride. It's because their entire career is on the line. This is a high-stakes game. If your city's economy booms, if you attract a big tech company, you get promoted, you climb the ladder. But if you fail, you're stuck. You're literally competing against thousands of other ambitious officials for a handful of top jobs. They're not just mayors. They're basically acting like hyper-competitive CEOs of City Incorporated.
But here's where it gets even more interesting. This whole economic engine doesn't just run on policy. It's plugged into this deep and kind of paradoxical cultural mindset. You've got these two completely different belief systems living side by side at the same time in the same people. On one hand, it's a ferociously capitalist culture. Ambitious, obsessed with making money, ruthlessly competitive. But on the other hand, society is also deeply socialist. There's a huge emphasis on social harmony, on the community, on this goal of common prosperity. It's this wild mix of individualism and collectivism all at once. And that competitive spirit, it starts early. Just listen to this quote from Ku Jin. Can you even imagine? After every single major exam, your rank from number 1 all the way down to number 800 is posted for everyone to see. That kind of pressure cooker environment, that intense focus on merit and ranking, it gets hardwired into you from childhood. And that same drive is exactly what fuels the economy later on.
Now, obviously, a system this complex didn't just pop up out of nowhere. You can trace its roots back to the massive reforms under Deng Xiaoping starting in the late 70s. He basically pivoted the entire country. The new focus wasn't politics anymore, it was the economy. It started with simple things, like letting farmers keep and sell their extra crops. Then came the big experiments, these special economic zones, like Shenzhen. And the final booster rocket was joining the World Trade Organization in 2001. Each step was a building block for the powerhouse economy we're talking about today.
Okay, so we have this unique mix of a decentralized mayor economy and this intense cultural drive. How does that all play out in the modern tech race? Well, let's just say China's playbook looks nothing like Silicon Valley's.
In the West, especially in Silicon Valley, the holy grail is what we call 0-to-1 innovation. It's about creating something totally new, a breakthrough idea that's never existed before. Think the first iPhone. China's genius, though, is in 1 to N. They are masters at taking an existing idea, the 1, and scaling it to N, to millions or billions of users. They perfect it, make it cheaper, and roll it out with unbelievable speed and efficiency. It's less about inventing the light bulb and more about being the best in the world at electrifying the entire country.
And this ties into another really powerful idea, something Jin calls crisis innovation. The basic concept? Breakthroughs often don't come from a place of comfort. They're born out of necessity, when you feel like your back is against the wall and you have no other choice but to innovate or die. And we've seen this play out in real time. Look at the U.S. sanctions on things like advanced semiconductors. The goal was to kneecap China's tech industry, to slow them down. But what was the actual result? It had the completely opposite effect. It created a national crisis that lit a fire under their own domestic industry. It forced them to innovate at a pace they probably wouldn't have achieved on their own. Talk about an unintended consequence.
You know, we in the West often think of China as playing the long game, thinking in terms of centuries. But that's only half the story. On the ground level, there's this motto that's everywhere: short, flat, fast. It captures this incredible impatience. It's all about speed, about getting things done now, turning an idea into a massive business in the blink of an eye. It completely shatters that stereotype of slow, patient planning.
So let's put ourselves in the shoes of an entrepreneur in China. What's it actually like trying to build a billion-dollar company in this system? Well, it turns out it's like walking a tightrope. A very high, very wobbly tightrope.
Yeah, entrepreneurs there live on this crazy spectrum. On one end, it can feel like the Wild West. You have tons of freedom, not a lot of rules, and you can grow at an insane pace. But on the other end of that spectrum, you can get the leash yanked. Hard. We all saw what happened with figures like Jack Ma. One minute you're on top of the world, the next you're being brought back down to earth by the state.
So to survive and thrive, you have to play by a set of unwritten rules. And they're pretty clear. Rule 1, keep your head down. Rule 2, don't be too flashy or too outspoken. Absolutely stay out of politics. And never, ever forget that in China, the power of capital cannot eclipse the power of the political leadership. There's an old proverb: the tallest tree gets the most wind. That's the one you have to remember. And that's the real lesson from the whole Jack Ma situation. The message from Beijing wasn't stop being an entrepreneur. No way. They need that innovation. The message was, don't get too colorful. It was a reminder about who's ultimately in charge. It was a behavioral correction, not an attack on business itself. So, let's pull it all together. You have this decentralized mayor economy, which is basically a massive internal competition. You have a culture that is somehow both ferociously capitalist and deeply socialist at the same time. And you have an innovation engine that runs on scale and crisis. This wild, paradoxical mix is what created, without a doubt, one of the biggest economic miracles the world has ever seen. But, and this is the big question we're left with, facing a whole new set of global tensions and internal problems, is this unique playbook built to last?